welcome to Game of TV Show. That's what it's called now. This is where we recap Game of Thrones just for you. We do it the next day so that you can spend your time watching it and then divulge it with us. Hi there, my name is Maud Garrett, aka Melisandre, but after this episode, I'm not sure I want to be called that anymore. Joining me on the panel today, we've got Matt Lieberman.
Hello.
Do you know what we say to Matt?
Yeah.
Not today. I don't know.
Not today.
I'll work on that.
Yeah. Valado Harris.
And we've got DJ Wooldridge. Hey, DJ.
Hello.
So we're going to talk about the chronological order of the events that take place, and then we're also going to say what we loved, what we didn't like. We'll rate it. We'll also get you to weigh in on it. Use that hashtag TV Show on Twitter. And then we'll be using that every single week. So if you do have thoughts, maybe give us a bit because we don't like it to be spoiled for us before we watch it.
Yeah. Maybe just like don't tweet it directly at us. Just use the hashtag Game of TV Show or just TV Show. I'll look at both.
Are we using both those hashtags?
I don't know. Or Game of Thrones
Do we
show.
just want to do TV Show?
TV Show.
Hashtag TV Show.
Yeah.
Boom.
But just use the
Use that
hashtag.
hashtag.
It's real good.
Hashtag
we like
TV
it.
Show.
Yeah, we've always liked that hashtag.
Show of hands. Do we like?
TV Show of hands?
There we go. So let's kick it off, I guess. It starts and ends at the Wall, and the events that take place. It's probably the most riveting thing that happened in this episode. We know that Jon Snow is dead on the ground in a pool of blood. He's looking very dead.
Yeah, there's a lot of blood. There's a lot of dried blood in that snow.
And on the ground as well.
Yeah.
Because
Boom,
it's
boom.
snow. Because that's his...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boom.
The heart-wrenching thing for me is seeing Ghost locked up.
That's awful.
I thought that was really
and
effective
howling.
hearing him howling as
Yeah.
they were kind of pushing in, and Davos is the first one that sees him being a badass, and you get the one group of guys that they control. Like, who do you trust in the wall? Pretty much
These five guys.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
You see these guys walk in, they're like, ooh, we fucked up.
Yeah.
We weren't here.
Yeah.
This shit's going down.
Yeah.
I thought it was cool that they, right off the bat, they knew who did it. It wasn't rocket science to figure out why.
Right.
And at that point, we segue directly into Sir Alistair doing his cunt speech.
Yeah.
His
Yeah.
like, listen, I'm all about loyalty, except for this one time, but it was because I wanted to help you guys. And
he was, he goes, I completely take ownership for
Yeah.
what happened. I have no, I don't disparage the fact that Jon Snow wasn't doing the best he could,
Yeah.
but it wasn't good enough. I'm going to do better.
Yeah.
Deal with it.
I have not once broken an order. I've always followed orders, and I am the most loyal person here.
And now come
Just
on,
not to that guy.
he's
Just
dead.
not to this guy that I've always hated and always had it out for. Yeah, no, I thought that that these scenes were like really clean and effective storytelling. I really liked Sir Alistair's speech. It was very like true to the character, and also it allows you to see both sides.
Yeah.
Like legitimately, he felt that what Jon was doing, even though we as an audience know that it was for the best, went against everything that they stood for. I 100% understand where he came from and why he did what he did, even if I don't agree with it.
What I want to understand is why does everybody in this world, what do they have against peaceful rulers? Like, hey, listen, we're going to take the high road and be peaceful. Screw you!
Same could be said about our actual world.
It's true.
Yeah, because that means that they're weak. The one thing that bummed me out is like they bring Jon's body in, the Red Woman comes in, and then promptly nothing happens. She looks at it and she's like,
Actually-
I saw him fighting at Winterfell. I guess I'm gonna go sulk for a while.
I disagree.
Really?
We saw something in that scene that we have never seen before, and that is the Red Woman, Melisandre, vulnerable. She realized she chose the wrong person. She invested the fate of Westeros into the wrong man. And when she sees Jon Snow dead, knowing that Stannis is like long gone, I think she realizes the whole world's gonna burn or fall to the ice, and that's my fault.
Do we know that she knows how to resurrect people?
That's a good
Because we know
question.
that people that follow the Red God, that's a skill, but is that something she knows how to do?
Was it Minoth of Thor? What's his name?
Sure.
Thoros of Myr. Thoros of Myr was able to resurrect Beric Dondarrion,
Yeah.
and he has
Like
that
6
ability
Matt, where do you keep that information in your
Yeah.
brain?
in my little brain basket.
Because I don't remember any of those
No,
characters' names.
that's a really, really good point, DJ, because I was just like, and you're going to resurrect him with your magic. And resurrect him with your magic. Why aren't you resurrecting him? Resurrect him with your magic. And I'm just sort of like, why do you have this body if you're not going to resurrect him? And it was driving me crazy.
Because she does other things. She births shadow
She births
babies.
shadow
She
babies.
uses her womanness.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's
get a little bit
a
more of
good
that
point.
later.
I never thought about the fact, what if she legitimately does not know how to resurrect somebody and has to make a far more awful sacrifice to make that happen if it's going to
I
happen?
do think two things. One, I think the longer Jon's body just lays on that slab, the more likely it is that he will be resurrected. Because why else would you keep
A body?
Yeah. Also, I do think it will require the death of somebody. Something's going to have to, which actually that would make it feel a little less like a cheap tactic to me if there's some sort of sacrifice that brings Jon back, as opposed to like trying to trick the audience.
They've got to burn someone in the vein of
because that always works.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I honestly, the ending bit with Melisandre, can we talk about that since it's at the wall, or do we want to wait?
We're going to finish off with
we'll
that
finish
one,
off with that.
because
Okay.
that kind of scene just established that there was no more snow.
Right.
There's a group of, and it kind of established Davos as a character again, and we're all rooting for him.
I've always loved
Yeah.
Davos. Yeah. I got this tweet. It's a picture tweet, so I can't really put it on screen. It's from Jason Doan, and it's a conversation between Sir Alistair and Sir Davos. Alistair, you don't seem to understand the situation. Davos, all I understand is if any more words come pouring out of your cunt mouth, I'm gonna eat every fucking mutton in this castle. Alistair, you live for the king, you're gonna die for some mutton? Somebody is.
And I really like that scene with, I think it was a little bit later in the episode, when Alistair is talking to Davos. And he's not
through the door?
He's not,
Yeah.
Alistair's not coming to negotiate, but Davos turns it into like, well, if these are your demands, I want some mutton.
He's like, really?
Yeah.
Really?
I like how practical Davos is. Like, listen, we're not getting out of this. He even says, like, based on my experience.
I always fight this guy.
Yeah.
I'm always getting bullied by this type of man.
We open that door, and all the guys with the crossbows. There's a lot of scenes in this episode that felt weirdly modern. And that with the crossbows was one of those, like, all the guys with the guns at the door, even though it is practical and it makes sense.
Yeah.
Right.
So moving on, keeping in the north though, but going to Winterfell, we see the dead body of Miranda, who was Ramsay's little side chick.
Boo-hoo Ramsay, he's so sad.
He actually kind of looks a little bit upset with the whole ordeal until you realize that he wants to feed Miranda to the dogs because waste not, want not, is good meat.
Turns out he's still crazy.
Yeah.
He's nuts. But we know that Sansa and Theon have fled. Ramsay Bolton, again, showing absolutely no emotion, but just needs to remind Ramsay that without Sansa and an heir, he is disposable. Reminding Ramsay that, he can talk the talk all he wants, but he's there for a purpose. And if he doesn't have that particular thing, then he is disposable. I think that's kind of like a nice reality check for him.
Mm-hmm.
Arusa's kind of like the anti-Davos, where he's really practical even though he's evil.
Right.
Like, where he's talking about, like, oh, you need an heir, and also...
There's lawful neutral and chaotic neutral.
Yeah, don't feel like this is a great victory because the Lannisters are going to come. This episode did a lot of headway for me, giving me situations where I'd actually root for the Lannisters. And
Well, that's what like the last 3 seasons have been about, is like slowly but surely, even if you don't root for the Lannisters actively, you have some level of empathy for just about all of them once Joffrey was killed.
I'm not talking about necessarily empathy, but like pitting them against people that I dislike worse.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the lesser evil, not the one that you're actually
because all the
for.
people we like are dead?
I don't know, but you think about the Lannisters versus the Boltons, fuck the Boltons.
Yeah, fuck the Boltons, slash them! Yeah.
If the Lannisters are the one that kicked them out, and then we'll get to them later, but the Sand Snakes, fuck the Sand Snakes.
Legitimately fuck the Sand Snakes.
Staying in the north, though, we see that Sansa and Theon have fled. It's tough conditions. It's freezing cold out there. Theon doesn't have to worry about shrinkage.
No.
But he does know what...
Thankfully. Thank you, Ramsay.
Thanks, Ramsay.
He does know what the worst outcome is, and going through ice water is not as bad as getting caught, which they end up getting caught anyway.
Which was just like, no,
I was so
already, for
heartbroken.
God's sake, I hate this.
For a moment, it was super excruciating because it's like, if you just take him back, it's all the stuff that I don't need, and also we've been there. I don't need more of it. But fortunately,
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this is my first cheer moment. Yeah. So when I was actually watching with my roommate who's never seen Game of Thrones before ever, and so I was kind of like half watching, half explaining like the last, 5 seasons. But in this moment, I was like, yay! And she's like, this is good. I'm like, this is great!
My exact words were, kill them fools!
Yeah. So this was like a good hiya moment.
And so did Pod.
I like Pod's a...
Yeah.
For like the majority of the fight.
I was really worried he was gonna die.
No? Okay.
Yeah.
I was worried when Reek grabbed the sword because this is Game of Thrones. I'm like, don't do something stupid.
Yeah.
Don't do something stupid.
Yeah.
We also know that Brienne's sole purpose is to serve, and she is one of the better characters here because it's like, when you're choosing your ultimate team, boom, you pick Brienne first, you're set.
Yeah.
And now that she's dedicated herself to Sansa, finally, this took seasons and seasons to do, and Sansa finally realizes she needs help.
Yes.
And this woman is exactly the person to do that.
I loved that little moment where she's trying to accept her oath, but she doesn't know all the words, and then Pod kind of like feeds her.
She hasn't been trained all the way.
No.
She was so young when she was supposed to be Joffrey's, and then she's kind of just been pit and post all around. She hasn't actually, the thing that she loved the most, which was to learn how to be the lady of the house.
Yeah.
She hasn't been able to do that.
I would call this a true high point in the episode. This is something that fans have been waiting for a long time.
Yeah.
Book readers like even longer. And it was really just a joy to see, and I thought it was very well executed.
I liked the way they set it up, where it's like a miniature holding of court with Sansa the lady and Brienne is the knight and all that stuff.
Right.
I would say this is one of the bigger highlights of the show.
Of the series.
Yeah.
I would say so. It's an iconic moment.
It might be one of the biggest victories we've ever had. We're like, this is just this moment is just positive.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with this on any level.
No.
You don't usually find yourself cheering in Game of Thrones.
No.
It's usually like, what? And we're coming up to that soon, like a shock moment. But I think, this was a feel-good moment that we've been searching for.
It's funny how I'm actually much more invested as Sansa as a ruler than Dany.
Wow, why
After
is that?
I hated Sansa in the first seasons, and at this point, I guess because
She was a brat.
There's real growth.
She was so blind to everything, though.
And there's real growth, and I feel like through the hardship she's had, she's got a perspective that I would trust her as a ruler.
Yeah, I think if anything, and we could pick apart all the things that she's been through and whether or not they were necessary for character development, all we like, but as a result of that, I think that there is, at this point, no one more deserving of not just a happy ending, but a righteous ending than Sansa. Like, even Dany has made mistakes.
I think the best thing about Sansa is she's a beautiful blend between what she's learnt from her father about how to be a kind, good, just person, and then all that kind of trickery from Peter Baelish. So she's kind of like choosing. He's still in the
Good
air.
question.
Yeah.
I would like to pick up with him. We picked up with so many people this
He's got
week.
the papers signed to be the sole owner of the heir, hasn't he?
Yeah, I would like to see Sansa end up, when all said and done, as the leader of Winterfell.
That would be really cool.
Yeah.
Julian Nunez at Julian Nunez with 2 Z's said the momentum slowed down after Sansa and Theon, in my opinion. That Brienne moment was so great and earned. A lot of people are saying this was like the big moment that made them love this episode. Or if they didn't like the episode, this is the saving grace of it.
I agree with that.
Yeah. I think whatever you think about the episode, this moment was top notch.
We move next to King's Landing, where Jaime's returning to his sister, but not with an alive daughter.
Cersei's so happy. Like,
That moment, I actually really thought that was beautiful acting from Lena Headey, who was just, so excited to have her daughter back because she's been away for so long, and she's had Joffrey pass away in that time. And then realizing that there isn't Marcella, that there's a coffin, and it's that heartbreak that you catch.
Yeah, and it turns
Jaime feels like helpless. He goes, "I did what I was supposed to do. I brought her back, but she was poisoned." And I feel like the death of Marcella is the catalyst for them to kind of reunite. Because the last season 5, was very bad for those two.
Yeah. If only they had email in this world, Could have just fired one off like, hey, BT dubs.
That's really something you're going to send in an email.
Yeah. Just, what
Deads
else?
with 2 Z's.
You just need to get it to her quickly
They've
before you
got
show
ravens.
up.
If you were going to do that, you could do it via Raven. I was kind of bummed out with this storyline because it didn't really... Yes, she was processing grief, but otherwise it didn't really go anywhere.
I mean, you see Robert Strong there. You kind of see he hasn't yet to say a word, and he probably won't. But
Robert Strong, Franken Mountain?
You mean
That's it.
Frankenmountain, yeah.
You kind of see his dead eyes behind the mask, which he'll never take off.
Can't wait to see him cut loose and see who has
Sure.
to fight him.
I think we're getting some of that potentially even as soon as next week because she's
great.
got to lash out.
Yeah.
There's Brain and Brawn in every situation. You've got Davos, who's hopefully going to get Ghost and maybe the power of Melisandre. You've got Sansa, who now has a Brienne.
Yeah.
You've got, Cersei, who's got her own Robert Strong.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny to see them and their cohort.
Yeah.
I like this scene because it was interesting to see Cersei put more emphasis on the prophecy she was told, and kind of accepting, and instead of like it looks like her time in prison really did affect her personality, and like
She's
maybe
reflecting.
she should take lot in her situation. I don't know. I really like the scenes with Jaime, although it's funny how I'm feeling a little more for Cersei, and I feel like Jaime's returning to the dark side when he's kind of like, screw everybody else, it's us versus the world. It's like, don't do that, Jaime.
Yeah, I
don't do that.
Don't want
Jaime.
to see that go all the way.
Get back with Brienne. You and Brienne were real cool together.
Oh man, yeah, come on, leave your
Cersei?
sister and go be with Brienne forever, please. What I liked about the prophecy stuff is it's an echo to the last season premiere where we saw that prophecy, and it legitimizes that choice to do a flashback, which is something the show doesn't do.
Now, you remember what the prophecy was about. She was going to lose all 3 children. She wasn't going, and the children were not born from her king husband, who she would marry, and that she would die by the hands of her brother.
Ooh. Did she mention that when she brought that up to him?
No, but she's saying, now I think I need to start listening to the prophecy.
Got it.
And this will probably those typical prophecy shenanigans where the stuff you do to try to prevent it ends up making it happen.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly.
I'm going to kill Jaime before he can kill me, and then Jaime kills me.
Yeah.
Either that, or it isn't necessarily...
Oh,
Tyrion as
that'd be
well.
even better.
The other brother.
would be
That's I'm going to place it right
amazing.
now. That is my bet that Tyrion kills Cersei.
But I also think
That's
could
probably what
be...
she's thinking too. That's why she's not like,
that's why
Jaime.
she's not,
probably
Jaime.
like,
I feel like it could also be like if Jaime does go down this dark path of like, let's burn the world because they took our daughter, then it's not necessarily at his hand, but by his actions could also be another interpretation of that same prophecy. His bloodthirstiness following Myrcella's death could lead to her premature end.
Right. So now with the dead Myrcella, we go back to Dawn and figure out what the hell is going on in this kingdom here. It turns out that the women power, they're all uniting together to eliminate the weak men.
Again,
Yes.
why do we hate peace so much?
My goodness. What are your thoughts on this episode? Because I think this scene provided them a shock value. The thing that you didn't see coming, and neither did Tristane.
But I feel like I did see it coming.
Yeah?
Because the Sand Snakes have always hated Prince Doran. Just because the Lannisters left and they were able to murder Myrcella doesn't mean they weren't going to murder Prince Doran.
But I feel like
everyone in Dorne hates the prince.
And that was interesting to see because the only person that we really knew that had Prince Doran's back ended up getting a spear through his. And I think there was a tweet in there saying it was really upsetting to not see, what's his name again? The bodyguard. He plays a bigger role.
Oh, Sir Oakheart.
Is it Oakheart?
Oakheart. In the books, the Dorne storyline is far more complex. We have this Kingsguard who falls in love with one of the Sand Snakes, and she seduces him and gets him to take Myrcella out of safety and into the hands of the Sand Snakes as they lead this uprising.
That's the book line, and that's where we're at.
Right. It's a far simpler version of the story because they want to get to the interesting part, which is Dorne versus King's Landing, and I understand why. It just wasn't a huge shock to me.
Now, last season, we felt that the Sand Snakes battles was a huge anticlimax. Are you finding it's the same this time?
Actually, this paid off. This took a storyline that I thought was a non-starter last season and gave it consequences. Because the last season was, Jaime, I'm going to go get my daughter, and then she ends up dead, so it's like, well, then what the hell is the point? Well, the point is, I guess, that we're going to get a full-on war between...
Well, Prince Doran's reading this scroll that's saying Myrcella landed dead, and then straight away she's like, you, Ilara Sands? What's her name again?
Ilaria Sands.
Ilaria. And Ilaria's like reading it going, all right, well, we've just got to kill everyone now.
And again, emphasizing the fact that, like, if it's between them and Cersei, that's family that she's murdering. That's somebody that's on her side, and she's just murdered. Like, screw them. Screw the Sand Snakes. And Tristane getting the fucking spear through the back of the head.
That was the one thing I was a little confused about because I recall, maybe I recall incorrectly, didn't Tristane get on the boat to King's Landing with Myrcella? No, so it was a separate boat.
Yeah, because he was going to be on the small council.
Got it.
And again, that would have been a good play.
He was being sent later.
But he's only under Prince Doran's kind of like mindscape and doesn't know how to be a Game of Thrones contestant, I guess.
I did like that bit of banter between the two Sand Snakes after the one with the spear, Keisha Castle Hughes killed him.
I've got 2 brothers. It's like I'm in a room and all of a sudden my brothers walk in the room and they're like, one of us is going to kill you. Choose which one. I'd be like, are you kidding? Like, where is this coming from? I thought that whole kind of situation was a little bit ridiculous.
Well, maybe
and he was like, oh, okay, one of you will, so I guess I'll just choose you then.
Remember, all last season was them trying to, like, undo the Sand Snakes' machinations, so he probably knew enough to be like, I've been expecting this.
But still.
No. But they're not siblings.
The Sand
cousins.
Snakes. They're cousins.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Cousins?
They're cousins.
Yeah.
I just love when Keisha Castle Hughes stabbed him through the face, and the other one's just like, you're a greedy little bitch.
Yeah.
And it's just sort of like, I love that killing is the thing they love the most, and it's like, that's what they're fighting over. I wanted to kill him. You suck.
Yeah.
That's what they're like, though. They've each got their own weapon that is like iconic to them, and I think it's kind of like having your own mutant power, but they're
Right.
at one with the whip or the spear.
And there's still something so kitschy and fun about seeing the little girl from Whale Rider stabbing people through the face.
It's also
Nonchalantly,
interesting
yeah.
that it's like there's no nobility in what they did. Mm-hmm. It's just all petty.
It's just murder.
Yeah, it's very emotionally driven. It has nothing to do with the benefit of the country because it's not. It's going to end up ruining the country.
Right. It's like, you're weak. You didn't defend us when this happened, so we're going to start a war over.
Who was
Yeah.
the actual heir then? So you got Prince Doran, and then Trystane, who was supposed to step up, and he's now dead. Alara Sand was a prostitute, and these are her
This
bastard
is a coup.
children.
Yeah, so she's just straight up taken over.
Yeah. Technically...
She is now nominating herself.
Yeah, that's the impression I got from this episode.
But that's like the weird thing, because it would be the Sand Snakes who were the daughters of Oberyn. They're the ones with royal blood. I don't know. Maybe they're leading as a cabal.
Yeah.
We got a tweet here from John Michael at JMTM. Anyone else still completely bored with everything Dorne related? So not everybody is crazy about this storyline.
Not after this.
Yeah.
I'm much more invested in the Dorne plotline after these events.
I hope it takes an interesting and aggressive turn. Like, I don't want to see them planning in Dorne for half a season.
Aggressive turn?
No, look, a slaughter is an aggressive turn, but then if it turns into 3 episodes of them planning, I'm just sort of like, I've seen this in 3 other kingdoms already.
I was more excited about season 4 Dawn and Oberyn with Ilaria and like their relationship that was quite shocking and different. And then when we actually go to Dawn, it was anticlimactic. I don't think that they're back yet, but I think as soon as they leave Dawn on their way to King's Landing, that's when things will get interesting for me.
Well, aren't those 2 Sand Snakes on their way to King's Landing? The ones on Trystane's boat?
Have they landed?
How did they coordinate that murder?
Great question.
How did they coordinate it if they're on
Not
that
through
boat?
email, as we've established earlier
Yeah,
in
so
this
there's
episode.
2 sand snakes on the boat, and they're like, oh, she's dead.
No, they would turn that boat back around to Dorne, because to go to King's Landing without a full fleet of soldiers is suicide, because
Well, I
they
guess
know
we'll
that
see.
the Sand Snakes killed
The
Myrcella.
fact that
guess
it's
we'll find out.
confusing, though, is not good.
Not the greatest.
Well, we'll see. I guess
Yeah,
we'll see next
we'll see.
episode what the plan is.
Alrighty, then we go over to Slavers Bay Marine, and you see the 2 smart people, the ones with the brains, coming together. You've got Varys and Tyrion, and they are
I like them together.
They're so great,
Yeah.
but obviously they have an agenda. They need to fix Marine, and they need to reestablish the favor of the Queen, which she's currently out of.
And they need to stop eating babies, because as we all know, moms don't like that.
Moms don't like it when
as
you
soon
ask
as you
them
do
to
this
eat their baby.
movement with your mouth, oh, it's dangerous.
You think that's a thing that went down in Marine before that? That rich
Oh,
people would be
sure.
like, I want to eat your baby.
Yes,
Here's some money.
100%.
Let me eat your baby.
If you think the masters didn't eat babies, you're wrong.
So that was a little bit weird. The whole conversation, though, it was great seeing them back together and that they do have a bit of a plan. What's a little bit unfortunate, though, is that during the end of their discussion, all the boats in the harbour were on fire.
Yeah, in case you were worried that Dany was going to sail over to King's Landing this season, don't worry, everybody.
Not
She's
happening.
going to stay in Marine at least for 1 more season.
See you in 2018. Good night, everybody.
That was a little bit annoying. Who do you think did that? Sons of Harpy?
Sons
of
of Harpies, but for
Harpy.
what purpose?
So that no one can escape?
I think that
guess
was
so.
actually her only real asset. She rightfully kind of like took those, which she tried to bargain them, and they're hers. And I think
Yeah.
they're destroying anything that's hers.
No.
That's
Her
fair.
guards, the Unsullied, her, right-hand men, the boats.
A lot of like a bitchy populace in this world.
How do you feel about the guy proselytizing to the people of Marine, saying like, will you take up her flames now that she's abandoned you? And that made me wonder if it wasn't the Sons of the Harpy who set the boats on fire, but actually the people saying like,
Why'd you
burn
ditch
anything
us?
rich. Yeah.
Yeah, you
Don't
freed
know.
us,
Yeah.
and then you left us.
And then you left us,
Yeah.
and now we're going to take over the city ourselves by burning it to the ground.
Of the plot lines throughout the series, as I look at them, Dany's has been the one that has been the most disappointing, I think. It started with the most promise, and then following season
Yeah.
1, kind of like just
She
a
lost
lot
her
of wheels
Carl.
spinning.
Yeah.
Which I can't imagine for people that read the books. Because this has only been like 6 years for me. And it's like, okay, we need to...
Oh, I get ya.
It's been really disappointing.
Yeah.
She got on a dragon last season. Was that not enough?
5 years.
Yeah.
I'm
5 years
hoping-
to get on one.
I would really like to see, because the talk is that after this season there will be 2 truncated seasons that amount to about 13 to 15 episodes.
Yes.
Which, yes, please, yes, do that. That is the right call. So I'm hoping this season ends, especially with this, because this episode felt kind of like, hey, we're doing things. Like it's time.
We're setting everything up.
Yeah, we're trying. It really feels like the end game. Like
I'm cool with shorter seasons, but part of me wishes that they would just air all 13 to 15 in one go.
Yes,
and 7 seasons for 7
kingdoms.
kingdoms.
HBO doesn't want to do that.
Oh, for sure.
Hey, damn you, HBO. It's not like you have no other hits on the air right now except for the 3 that are on right now, isn't it?
I don't know.
No, I read this article.
It's Game of Thrones, Silicon Valley, and Veep.
Are the only surefire hits that they have right now, which is
That's
the
why
most
they're charging $14.95 a month for HBO Now, huh?
Exactly, because people are only buying it right now.
Right, yeah.
Too bad.
So let's move on to the search party. It's Dario Naharis and Jorah Mormont who are teaming up to find their one true love. That's an awkward little bickering. It's Dario, like Dario's swinging his sword around, just kind of like proving his place with Jorah. But Jorah knows his days are numbered, and his end goal is just to see Dany back and in power before he...
Did we determine, it was stated, right, that he can't just cut off his arm?
He can't.
It's not like zombieism where you cut off your arm and you're good to go.
He's just watching it, hey.
Yeah, I think didn't we establish in
still
earlier
there.
seasons that like once you get the grayscale, you're screwed.
I don't know.
I'm sure that they were doing amputations there, but the real trick was to stop it from spreading. You had to have tonics and this alchemy that are like combined that was expensive and not
that
many
would
people had the
happen
knowledge.
with
Shireen. That's exactly what happened.
I
They got the
feel
best
like
of the best
it's-
in to stop it.
I feel like it's his pride that stopped him from saying anything. He doesn't want to admit
I think
that
he's got bigger things to do. He's like, I could try and find one person to fix this, and by that stage it could be too late, or I can start now by saving my love.
I did like how they were able to find Dany's trail because there was a big target around it from the horses. So it was like, okay, that makes sense because otherwise, like, how would you find that? Never in a million years.
Really, they were like tracking the land.
Yeah.
But where's Drogon?
he's
brains.
Drogon.
I love it.
Yeah.
Do you think? Well, did you guys see the teaser for next episode?
Yes.
For those that did not and don't want to, plug your ears for a second.
Spoiler alert!
We saw a dragon in that teaser. Do you think the Sons of the Harpy are going to go after the dragons now that they burn the ships? That would be a mistake, by the way.
But
Sons of the Harpy.
it
That would be a
makes
mistake.
sense, doesn't it? Because they're destroying everything that's hers.
Yeah.
The ships are easy; they don't fight back.
Yeah.
But they have to know where the dragons are being kept, right?
That's another thing. They need
But
email
Tyrion
in
was
this
standing
world.
there.
They need email and they need to watch How to Train Your Dragon so they can get these dragons in shape. Because that whole conversation Dany had later would have been so much easier if she could have just like done a whistle and Drogon would have come down and be like, "What's up, bitches?"
There was something in, I believe, one of the trailers that was Tyrion saying like nothing good can come of dragons in captivity.
Yes,
I know
yes.
I'm misquoting.
Yeah.
But I think it's Tyrion who's like, we need to free these dragons
And
and
I'm
remind the
pretty sure he was
people of the
standing
power
there.
of Dany.
And one of them was like,
Yeah.
get a fireball.
I know that that's not the end of Tyrion, but can I just say aloud, I hope it's not the end of Tyrion?
Oh no, there's no way. Not
Yeah.
a chance.
I know, but
Tyrion
it's
talks
just
the
real
talk.
scary.
He gets out of situations. He may lose half a nose
Yeah.
or just have a little pretty scar. But he gets out of these
It'd be
things.
cool if he was also the unburnt, but I don't think that's happening.
I had an afterthought about Dario and Jorah Mormont. If Dario keeps being a dick to him, do you reckon Jorah would be like, oh, anyway, but can you pass me the...
Oh, no.
Is it that
you got
easy?
the gray skin.
All you have to do is
You
touch
just
it.
got my gloves.
He is wearing gloves,
Okay.
but he pulls up his shirt.
His sleeve.
Okay,
But I mean, like, that's what I would do.
But I
like,
don't-
oh
I
yeah,
see-
you're gonna have it forever and ever? Can you just...
Yeah,
oh.
Daria's like, you know what the best part about having sex with Dany is? Coming. Yeah. Just like,
You would. You'd just be like, my bad.
I
I'll
didn't
give
see
you
Dario as being a dick. I saw it as kind of like a
was
bickery
playful.
partnership going on.
He's like, must suck being in love with a woman that will never love you back. Yeah, that's in jest.
I guess
grabbing the heart.
I guess it came from the way I interpreted it is Dario's not saying she loves me. They're just fucking. I don't think Dario has any illusions about his relationship with Dany.
Yeah. Yeah, she's destined for bigger things.
Yeah.
And Dario is willing to, give her his life to aid in that. But I think he's just going, at least I'm getting something back.
Yeah.
Let's move on to where Dany is. She's been taken to the Dothraki camp. There's a little bit of dialogue beforehand with two Dothraki, the captors, who are talking about her curtains and drapes.
Yeah.
Sure.
I read a review that called them the douche-racky.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they were broing out hardcore.
They were broing it up.
Yeah, I was just waiting for them to high five. And,
Totally.
Yeah. Crack a natty light.
I told you guys before, and I did a tweet about this, that the two things that I needed from this season is I wanted them to resolve Jon definitively and quickly,
Which they didn't.
Well, I mean,
getting
I'll give them until next episode. If
They didn't.
if they
They took steps
draw it out
towards
to episode like 5 or 6, it's like I'm gonna be pissed. Also, no rape. I'm a little raped out. And we successfully avoided rape in 2 situations in this episode, so I'm proud of Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Yay.
You know, they couldn't get away with not talking about rape because that's the world, but they didn't actually go to rape. So good job.
So when Dany is presented to the Carl, the wives straight away are like, take her head off. And he's like, well, you know, you're only saying that because you're jealous.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I'll bed her. And she's like, no, because I'm Stormborn, mother of dragons,
She's
Daenerys
the longest
Targaryen.
title in the world.
And he's just like, you're a queen of nothing.
Yeah.
And then she's like, oh, by the way, my dead ex just happens to be the previous Carl.
Yeah.
What didn't make sense to me in this particular instance is if she was living with the Dothraki for long enough to know their language and their customs, why did she not start with that? Why did she play this card that she knew wouldn't really work?
I think she was playing dumb to gain information.
Right.
Like, people say things in front of somebody if they don't think that they understand the language that she wouldn't have been able to hear if they knew who she was and how
understand that.
valuable a prisoner she was.
But I also thought we established in season 2 that if one of the other hordes found her, they'd kill her because
Yes,
she
which is why she
represents
ran
a rival.
away.
But I guess they have a rule that they're supposed to go to. They have a hard and fast no kill the, or was it her own horde? Maybe it was the horde that was.
It was the
Drogo's horde that became
Drogo's blood riders who then tried to steal his power and his
how did they
Khalasar
not
after that.
recognize her? Because initially in season 1, she was so different. She had white hair. They gave her this white stallion. It's been what,
Because
3,
again,
4
Mom,
years?
they don't have email. They didn't get the email that Khal Drogo was
But it
married
was
to this
only
white-haired
4 years, and
person.
all of a sudden she'd never existed.
It's not just only 4 years. These are different Dothraki. These are not
But
from
it
the
is
same
known
call.
is their slogan.
Yeah.
It is known that she would have been like, you know, white silver haired would have been the previous.
Well, it
Like there's
wasn't
only
known for
one
them.
white silver haired
It is
person
not-
in the whole world.
It is not known to them.
Pretty
It was not known to these Dothraki.
Yeah.
That seemed a little off to me. It kind of seemed like it didn't really make sense.
So do we
and
think
that she
we'll
didn't know what the
see-
custom of a widow was.
Yeah, that's
Well,
a little. That's a
she,
stretch.
I think she knew because it was mentioned back in season 1 that
Was it
that's
known?
where yeah, it was known. That's where it was mentioned back in season 1
yeah,
that
it was
the
known.
widows go to via Dothrak,
Widowtown.
if I'm remembered correctly. But I think maybe she forgot. It's been so long since she's been
Her
a part
life
of
was
that
at
world.
stake, and then Jorah whisked her away before she.
Have we
Right.
seen Vice Dothrak before?
We've never. They passed through it in
The
season
giant
1.
horse statues.
Giant horse
Okay.
statues. They passed through it in season 1. It was on the map a bunch, but we
Yeah.
haven't actually spent any real time there.
Where do you guys think this is going?
Nowhere fun. I'll say that.
It's like her. She's like, oh yay, we've got her. Oh, she escaped the Sun's puppy. Oh, now she's lost. Oh, now she's kidnapped. Oh, now she's
Yeah.
got to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
It's like zigzag.
What? She's gonna lead a bunch of old widows in a widows' rebellion?
No, Dragon's gonna come back down. The whole. Did I mean to do that? No. Did I do it? Yes. Are they still up?
I think
Yes.
it's valid.
The whole arc they gave her is that she needed to learn how to be a ruler, which is why she didn't go straight to Westeros. Has she learned anything about ruling?
No, she's lost everything that
past
she's
4
tried to
years.
help. That's
Honestly,
why Tyrion's there to
Yeah.
help her, but now she's not even there to learn.
I feel like on some level, and it's gonna disappoint so many people, they're setting up her story to basically have her realize that, you know what? I don't deserve the Iron Throne. They're better off without me.
No way. No way that's what they're setting up.
I don't know,
It would
man.
make sense
I
because she
feel
hasn't
like
learned a lot.
we've
I
got-
just don't
She's
think that's what
learned nothing.
She knows nothing. We've got such little time
It is
for her to
known.
take over King's Landing and then realize the bigger threats at the north, and the only way to solve it is to have 3 motherfucking dragons burn the White Walkers
I have a
down.
feeling is that King's Landing and Dorne are going to take each other out. That's going to resolve that. So by the time she gets there, her only responsibility is taking out the White Walkers. At that point, it will just be everybody versus White Walkers, which is kind of disappointing.
So there is no one on the Iron Throne at the end. There is no Iron Throne.
Maybe
I
there shouldn't
think
be an Iron Throne.
I think she takes the Iron Throne, but I think but she's not gonna have to deal with the Lannisters. I think the Dorne situation.
I think she melts the Iron Throne with dragon fire. Is what I think.
Ooh, I like that.
I think the Iron Throne is bye bye.
That's nearly as good as my fantasy of having Ghost ride one of the dragons.
Shut up! That would be so fucking cute and cool at the same time.
Because Ghost is actually.
Somebody make it happen. One of the artists in the audience, make it happen.
I want it so bad, guys.
So much.
Alrighty, let's move over to Bravos, which was, for me, one of the more disappointing scenes. I think they should have saved it until they had something better going. Yes.
She's training for Kid Daredevil.
Thank you.
Ladies stick to be Kid Daredevil.
Okay.
That was my exact note.
But
Training
no,
to be
this is a
Daredevil?
problem that the Game of Thrones has sometimes, where they'll put a scene in just so we know what's going on with a character, but it's not actually like a full story arc in an episode.
And wonder what happened at all, than to have a little bit to be like, it's okay, just wait.
Right, and instead have like a complete piece of their story in one episode. And I understand next week they'll have her come back and beat her up again, and we'll show that some time has passed and she's getting a little better.
Block blind.
She'll block one and be like,
you guys didn't like to see that. You guys weren't at least liked seeing that her training will continue, and also seeing what her life's like now that she is blind.
They were never going to throw her away. The fact that she's training to get a new face, so having non-working eyes in this particular instance is almost irrelevant. I think that now they're just saying like, we're going to make you, instead of being an assassin, I mean, you're still going to be able to do that, but sight's not going to stop you. Yes, it will now, but you have a destiny still.
Yeah. In response to your question, DJ, I appreciate knowing what's going on, and I love seeing Arya. Arya is one of my all-time favorite characters. I just think if you're going with a show with so many storylines, like for example that scene with Marjorie and the High Sparrow,
again, that was
didn't
pointless.
Go anywhere, didn't solve anything, just reminded us that that's where she is.
And that she has a destiny. It's not over yet. They're very, very similar themes.
Right. So my point is, if you want to introduce that story point, why not introduce it in an episode where you can actually advance that plot in some kind of way? Okay. I would argue that the Arya plot did more than the Marjorie thing, because it was setting up that, this woman's going to come back and that she needs to learn quick how to defend herself. So it's more effective in that way. But I feel like you stick to enough, only the stories that you have enough time to move along. Not just to check in with.
I feel like in the previous seasons they did a really good job of that. They were like, we're just going to focus on these plot lines, and we're going to go, chunk, and then always finish on Daenerys.
It was easier. It was easier when they had fewer storylines, and some episodes work really well, and the storylines merge really nicely. But the worst episodes of Game of Thrones are the ones that don't feel like an episode of television.
I think this. The way they've always grouped their storylines episode-wise is connecting it thematically. So they're discussing a theme, and I think the theme of this episode was vulnerability. This is this the darkest it's ever gotten?
Well, not
except
in
for
this
Sansa, but like Jon's dead. Melisandre's dealing with everything failing. Like
hopeless
Cersei's,
is the word.
Cersei's dealing with her daughter being dead. Marjorie's still locked up and trying to find a way out of there. Arya's blind and it's about finding a way to move forward.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the vulnerability from characters that you haven't seen it from yet has been really impactful, which was like for Melisandre, seeing Cersei like that again. There's people that were riding that wave, and then they've realized that they have no one to really turn to, and there's dire consequences everywhere they turn.
Which is probably why we didn't stop in with Bran, because it looks like his...
We didn't need to, I don't think.
He's not in a hopeless situation. He's busy training to be a magic tree wizard.
Right, and that's my point. It's like, we wouldn't have been happy just seeing Bran under the tree and like, wow, he can walk now, or whatever. They're gonna save it so that when they introduce him, probably next week, he's gonna have a decent chunk of the episode, so we can figure out who is this kid now.
The pilot is to set up for what's about to happen, and they need, because there are so many storylines. It's like but they did provide a few wow moments and yay moments.
We used to get at the 10th episode of the season before kind of like hey, here's where the season's going, but because where the books ended, this is the first time they ended like on hardcore cliffhangers for pretty much every character, and so we need to catch that up, which used to be the last episode of the prior season. Right.
Yeah, I think a lot of people who enjoyed this episode just enjoyed it because they're happy to see Game of Thrones again. There were enough exciting moments that they didn't feel bored, and they accept the fact that it's just a setup episode. People who are upset are just like, I don't want a setup episode, I want an episode.
Right.
Like, you can set things up and have action and have payoff.
Funny that you say that. There's a lot of articles floating around today saying, why does Game of Thrones all of a sudden suck? Or why are you bored by Game of Thrones? And it's saying because everyone's split up. And not the people that were in these scenes together or had story arcs together are no longer anywhere near each other. Bran's pretty much by himself. Arya's by herself.
But they have been for seasons now.
Well, and I think
and that's why they're saying because of that, it's declining into sort of like not investing in these characters.
Which is why I'm glad, which is why I want the showrunners to commit to their 13 to 15 more episodes so they can start tightening the noose, which we're seeing.
Yes.
Sand Snakes are gunning for King's Landing.
Yes.
Brienne and Sansa are finally together.
Yes.
We've got Stannis' plotline is Dunzo. All those people have been folded
Or
into
is it? What if he's
Ramsay
dead?
was like, no, he's dead, right? I mean, we didn't see a body, which is suspicious in the show.
See?
But
They're teasing us.
But anyway,
only so we can get a zombie stand.
His supporting cast has moved over to Jon Snow. Last season was transitioning, and I hope this season continues to do so. That now that it's away from the books, it can start just being worried about telling a good story and not adapting. Because George R.R. Martin, I have not read the books, but from what I've gleaned from watching the seasons, he likes to do this in perpetuity. And I think it's to the detriment because it was supposed to be 3 books, and then it was supposed to be 4 books, and then they committed to 7, and now there's a rumor there's going to be 8.
It's why he's having such a problem writing The Winds of Winter, is because he's built too many storylines.
So,
he keeps building out.
And so now the showrunners can just be like, it's time to tighten it up.
Yeah.
And with Brienne finally teaming up with Sansa, with
ticking one
Stannis
box.
gone, with I feel like that's happening, and that's why I'm actually more excited about the show than I've been in a while. Because I feel like we're going someplace, finally.
I hope so.
Yeah.
There's still storylines that we haven't touched on in a while that are coming back, like the Iron Islands has got to come back.
They could avoid that.
But they can't, though. They can't, because that's still an active threat that's out there. They reminded us this week that that Theon is the heir to the Iron Islands.
He's still
we
alive.
saw it in the trailer.
Yeah.
Like they're gonna be a part of this season, and we haven't checked in with the Iron Islands folks since season 2. What have they been up to? How have they changed?
We had Asha do her recon mission, actually.
Okay, in season 3.
Yeah.
That's fair. But it's still been 3 years.
Yeah. And he's no longer a man, and the Iron Isles are the kind of kingdom where it's like, you're no son of mine, just kill him to end his life.
Yeah.
Which could happen. Doubt it, though.
I
because it's a threat in
like
the
seeing
north.
Rika's Sansa's support system. I like Sansa's little council. I like that group.
Yeah.
There's a part of me, and I know this is kind of fucked up and stupid, but I'm just gonna say it. There's part of me that wants Sansa and Theon to get together in the end because because he's the one man who cannot harm her in any way. He has been conditioned to never harm anyone again.
Then they can be on the little council.
Yeah,
And I like the fact
I
that
think Sansa.
It
Somebody
doesn't have to be romantic, but I just
Yes,
mean
it does.
as a life partner, somebody who actively will never hurt her.
Well, I think for as long as Rika's on the show, he will be her support system.
Sure.
That's what I felt like this scene was conveying to me.
I think it would actually help when he re-becomes Theon.
Yeah.
And then he can kind of claim that and then use Sansa and feel like he feels like he owes her a debt.
Yeah.
He
you helped
absolutely
me.
does.
I completely overran Winterfell and pretended to kill your baby
This is all
brothers.
my fault.
I think either Sansa or Arya's got to end up with the Baratheon bastard that's off in the wind.
The one
Oh,
that's,
you mean,
the one that's rolling
yeah.
forever?
Oh, what's
He's
his-
gonna have guns
God,
for
Renly?
days.
Yeah,
Renly.
what? Or not
No,
Renly.
Gendry.
Renly was
Gendry.
Gendry.
They all sound the same. Whatever happened to Gendry?
Hold on. With back to Sansa, does this mean because Podrick was sworn to Brienne?
Yes.
Does this mean now that Brienne's sworn to Sansa? Does this
Yes.
mean Podrick will squire for Sansa?
No, I think she'll still squire
For
for
Brienne,
Brienne,
'cause
but
Brienne's a
they're both
knight.
sworn. They're both sworn to
Because
Yeah.
Podrick's a great ally as well to have.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's cut now to the final part of the episode. This was the wow moment. This is when we see magic again. Melisandre decides to not only call it a day, but call it a life. And she removes what appears to be a very magical necklace, naked. Let's not forget that she completely derobes.
No.
Like always.
To
Yeah.
then show her true self, which is a very, very old woman. And
Yeah,
then
some-
puts herself to bed.
Old school witch shit.
Yes.
FN2187, awesome Twitter name, at Misa Chan says, back in my day, we used necklace magic to catfish people. Red one.
I love it.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, I tweeted last night that I was kind of bored by this episode, and nothing bothered me more than people saying yeah, man, fuck that old bitch. I'm
Yeah.
like, that's not what I said. I thought that was cool and like a weird what the fuck moment, which I felt like the episode needed. I just wasn't sure if it was a strong place to end. I
don't know. I think because again, if the theme of this episode was the vulnerability, we saw somebody that was utterly confident in everything she was doing, have that not only
She
be
went all
emotionally vulnerable, but you see how vulnerable she's been the whole time, calling into question, which is probably where my idea was like maybe she doesn't know how to resurrect people because.
She would have.
This artifice of being in control this whole time is an artifice. I like that scene worked for me because I made a joke when I was watching, and it's like, listen, I'm gonna have to fuck Jon Snow's corpse because everything will be involved.
Right.
And then she starts disrobing, and I was like, everything is sex with this lady. Which, by the way, is that her real body, or did they pull Cersei like CGI the face? Because I know we've seen her before, but like.
Yeah, no, that's her.
Anyway,
you ever seen that movie Black Book?
No.
It's a good movie.
It's a good movie.
You should watch it.
But I was like, is it going to be more sex shit with fucking Melisandre? And then she moves the Exodus, and the scene becomes a lot more compelling.
Right.
And a lot more meaningful to me. Because it says something about her character and how, and it gives new context to her.
Arguably for the first time.
Yeah, this is the most you're right, this is the most we've ever gotten into her headspace.
Who she is, why she is. It also throws into question, like, one of my favorite things is just it makes, like, all the guys are just like, fucking, I love watching them fuck, and they're like, oh, and it makes them rethink all those sex things. Yeah. Stannis was having sex with an old lady, is a thing, but it says a lot about who she is. She's given everything, all of her energy, all of her essence, all of her life in pursuit of the glory of the Red God, and has gotten nothing back in return from him. She stared into the flames and saw nothing.
Well, she has, she predicted that this king, the one true king, is supposed to save them all.
Yeah.
And she got the wrong person, and everything that she was putting all her chips in has, realized that she got it wrong. Majorly wrong. And what I love, finally, in this one, Davos has always hated Melisandre with a passion, he thinks that she's the reason of Stannis' demise. And for him to say, with these guys being like, well, why do you want the Red Woman? Can she really take on 40 men? And he's like, I have seen what she can do. Yeah. I've seen her powers. We need her.
That conversation would be very different if he knew what she did to Shireen.
Yeah.
He'd be like, screw whatever she can do.
Maybe maybe he does find out and realizes
I have a feeling she's going to do something that helps them out of the jam, whether it's resurrecting Jon or not.
Resurrecting Jon is
or
exactly
at least
what
putting
she's
the
going to do.
Well, no, but here's the I'm actually wondering, after seeing old Melisandre, it may be, and again, questioning what she knows and what she's capable of doing. Could it be Bran and his magic tree wizard buddy that?
Oh, neato!
Could it be something that we're not expecting? Maybe this was a sign to us that, like, hey, don't expect Melisandre to resurrect Jon. She's not as powerful as you think she is.
Wow.
I don't know.
We don't know.
That's interesting. I you know what? If that's where they're going with it, I'm cool with it not happening this episode. I think that was my big gripe was. If you've seen the set photos, every sign points to him being alive.
Also, it would be a huge waste of his plot line to have.
100%.
He was finally becoming interesting. We still don't know his mystery backstory.
Right, he was
killing him off now is pointless.
Self-actualized. It just didn't make any sense. No. So, please just bring him back already.
Yeah.
So I put a poll up last night afterwards because there was a lot of mixed reactions from it, and the poll was basically like, what did you think of the pilot episode the premiere episode of season 6? I said, were they really dragging it out? With a pun, or was it north of your expectations? An hour ago, it was sitting on 50-50. It was an absolutely even split, and that was 2,000 votes.
Wow.
So everyone's either completely disappointed or they're happy with how it went. I want to know from you, what would you rate this episode?
I would give it a 7. The Brienne moment was really, really iconic. There was nothing necessarily bad about the episode. It just kind of dragged and meandered along. It gave us a lot of quick bites of things that we like, but to me it didn't really coalesce into something strong.
I'd give it an 8.5. I think for me it was a solid episode. Again, it feels like it has more direction. It's interesting that you bring up that 50-50 because I was looking at some stuff and I saw stuff that was like, oh man, they're really dragging stuff out, or oh man, they're moving too quickly. They're not taking their time. And it's like, make up your minds. Yeah. But for me, it showed a solid direction that it was heading in, and I feel I'm more excited about the show than I have been in a while.
For me, I like to compare it to my 10 episodes. You know, was it like, what is a 10 for Game of Thrones? And that's your red weddings. That's your Mountain versus Oberons. That's
Your
like,
hard home.
that's the episodes where you are gripping your chair. Does it come near that? For me, no. There was a wow moment with Brienne, which I think was the savior of this particular episode. They are putting the stones in place to walk across a bridge. That's what I feel. I want to know what's on the other side of the bridge.
Yeah.
So I think for me, it is a 7.
Yeah. Can we do quick poll? Why do you think she's old? Or like, do you have a theory as to how old she is or anything about that backstory? Like, I think that's people's big question is why is she like that?
Who is she?
I just think she's been practicing with the Red God for a long time, and that's one of the abilities she got from it.
I personally believe that the type of magic that she performs takes a lot out of her, and she's been doing it far longer and far worse than Thoros of Myr ever did. Because for most of his life, he was a
Gray situation.
Right, like he was a believer, but he didn't really practice his magic for most of his life. She birthing shadow babies, like that kind of stuff. It takes a lot out of a lady. It's hard to stay collagen.
That would be really interesting. I'm interested to find out more about that. I have a feeling with the Davos maybe finding out Shireen, with this stuff that we're finding out, I feel like Melisandre's going to have a very interesting season.
I think she's hundreds and hundreds of years old. And I think that she's been a practicing Lord of Light and as a priestess was garnered that power. And the power was in the red stone, and the red stone holds life. And I think that by putting it on, she has to show off this illusion of youth because her powers to consume royal blood, it was with seduction. And so her power was seduction, whereas Thanos of Myr, his power could just be Thoros of Myr.
Yeah.
Thanos.
Thanos is the bad guy.
Yeah.
I said Thor the first time as well.
It'd be interesting if we found out that she's been doing it wrong.
Yeah.
That all this, like, listen, maybe the reason things haven't worked out is, like, the right guy's like, listen, why are you murdering kids? You calm down.
And she's getting punished for it. That's interesting too.
I don't know.
Well, that's our thoughts. We thought we'd close off this particular episode reflecting on the premiere episode of Season 6 by getting our very own Will Walker in. And we're going to call this little segment The Final Words with Will. So, Will, I want to know from you, what did you think of episode 1, season 6?
Okay, Maud, I'm really glad you brought me into this because I watched this last night and I was all curled up in my bed. And I was like, off the bat, Khaleesi opens up the episode walking into the Orange Walker den. She knows that every single one of these Orange Walkers has a different ethnicity that can take her by. What I'm saying is the Sand Snakes are after her from the beginning. Plus, Mortaro. Mortaro's a character that's only in the books and wasn't actually in the HBO show. George R.R. Martin came up with Mortaro because of a personal inflection he had been going through at the time. He caught the flu back in 1982 and he pushed it into his art, calling it Mortaro. That's where the Sand Snakes come from, is him.
It's Mortaro.
In this episode, why would he betray her?
I don't know.
We're trying to figure that out.
It could be because, the books haven't been out yet, so this is all just the TV show now. Like, it's not even based on the books anymore.
And my main question is, if they're coming after her and if it's not based on the books anymore, why would Jon Snow come and take it from there?
That's a good question.
Man, it really makes me think.
Personally, I do think it's being dragged on, and what they need to do is take the Sword of Darthro, take that to the next Purple Walker, give that back to Mortaro, come back for the next season. Nothing will be dragged on but the dragon's neck.
There you go. You heard it here first. Thank you for your wise words from Will. Really appreciate that one. We'll be back next week. Use that hashtag TVShowShow if you want to get involved in the conversation. You could be your tweet could be read out in our next episode. Thanks, guys. That's us done. Hi there, I'm Melisandre, here to help out those who know nothing and give you a quick recap of what you need to know about Game of Thrones going into Season 6.